All right, everybody. We have a morning sandcast today. Beach volleyball with Tri-Born and Travis Mewhirter, brought to you as always by Wilson. Which, if you're watching, you can check out Tri's hat. You can get on WilsonVolleyball.com. Maker of the best balls in the game. And today we have the honor of having the legendary Randy Stoklos joining us. How we doing, Randy?
I'm doing great. Wonderful. Outside of the pandemic and us not being able to do what we normally do, life's good. Life's good.
Yeah. What have you been up to? It's been a while since I've seen you. You were working with my wife Delaney and Katie Spieler for a while, teaching them how to jump serve.
Yeah,
I haven't seen you in a good bit.
that was fun working with the girls. For the most part, if there's somebody that comes up to me and asks me, for a little bit of help in regards to their game, I'm more than willing to go and jump right in. And I thought that was kind of fun with those two girls, basically a year ago. And, when I first approached them and I said, okay, well, we got to go and do something and to kind of speed up the game and make something happen here. And all of a sudden Delaney says, I've never jump served in my life. I said, well, we got to start somewhere. And so they proceeded to do that, and they actually became very effective with it, and it was really fun to see. But in the last year, needless to say, this whole season, my CBVA youth events basically stopped. It was it was a bummer because, needless to say, the youth, I don't think, are really in that same predicament, being the ages that they are. And I think that ultimately it was kind of just a big bummer for me and all of the CBVA and all of the tournament directors. And I run Pacific Palisades.
Yeah, so you work with the CBVA, like you run the tournaments out in that way?
Yeah, in Pacific Palisades, Santa Monica area. Yeah, okay. I've been doing it for about 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
So. I remember when I was a kid, you and St. John had your camps going around the country, and you came to Hawaii, and I jumped in on one of those. And I think St. John wasn't there. You were the only one that showed up. So,
Yeah.
St. John owes me.
Try. I'm glad that we got to meet back then. Needless to say, Hawaii has been a very special place for me in the past. I think I won the tournament there 8 times. Just big fun, staying at the Hilton Hawaiian Village, bringing a surfboard over, going and surfing after. And then ultimately, down at the outrigger, having poo-poos and cocktails. There wasn't anything better, but you know how that is.
I'm looking forward to getting back there. Actually, next week I'm headed back. Quarantine or not, I'm coming.
Yeah, I've been actually back about 3 times in the last 3 months, staying with the friends over in Lanikai. Oh, so been able to get in the water there and exercise a little bit, but it's been I was going to go this week, and I had a couple more things to do, but maybe next week we can hook it up over there.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm stoked. I haven't been back since January.
Yeah. Sorry, you guys are still there?
Yep, still there.
Sorry. Where am I going? Can you guys still see me?
No, we can hear you, but can't see you.
Yeah. So how am I coming back to you guys?
There should be a video button.
There it is. There's
something.
Hey, I'm back. That's the problem with using a cell phone. All of a sudden, you got all these messages coming into you, and it starts early here. So we're back.
For sure. Have you been, you're not running your CBVAs right now. Have you just kind of been trying to stay in shape, or what's kind of the daily life?
To be honest with you, and you're kind of an interesting person to ask me that question, because I kind of got an autoimmune disease in February. And needless to say, I woke up one morning and my shoulders and my hips were just as sore as I could be. And it wasn't from me doing anything outside of the norm. And all of a sudden I was diagnosed with this kind of disease that I've been on a steroid for since about February. And I'm going to be off of it on my birthday in December 13th, but I've gained a lot of weight. And then needless to say, I've been trying to exercise and literally, try to, overcome it. And it's a very odd one, as you know, because you really don't know exactly where it happens and, where it starts and what you're doing and diet, everything else. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's crazy how these things pop up.
I woke up one morning and I felt like a 90-year-old man. I could barely move. And I was like really worried about what was going on. And needless to say, went to the doctors and they said I had this autoimmune, and that can be in just a number of different things that can be involved with that, as you know. So, but I'm feeling better, and needless to say, the steroids will make you feel better. But needless to say, I've gained like 30 pounds, 40 pounds in the meantime. And but I've been working really hard, and I want to get back until in December, back into better weight and everything else. So, yeah.
Sure.
Man, do you still get out there and play any? I know right now, maybe with the autoimmune disease, you're probably cutting back a little, but I didn't know if because every now and then I saw Hav out there on Saturday. He's still playing fours and talking trash.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous that those guys, Hovland and Dodd, are out there playing. My last game were during the Olympic Games, that exhibition down in Rio that I played a 6-man tournament. That was the last time I played. And to be honest with you, I really don't miss it, and I just, there's something about going down to the beach and, competing, but you have to do it, and you got to do it in a consistent way to at least, keep your mind straight. And I don't do that. The one thing I'm doing now is I'm bicycling. I've been diving for quite a long time, free diving, for the fish out in front. And when I get to the islands, all over the places. But, no, the volleyball, after doing it 21 years, straight from 16 years of age to 37, pretty much I did what I did. And I'm not looking back.
I feel like I always wonder whether I'm going to play a bunch when I retire. And to be honest, like, I think I'm just going to go surf and like maybe play some basketball and like do other stuff. For some reason, it's not like my first on my list to go back. And I feel like I'll get too intense, and I'll be like, I don't like playing because I'm not as good as I was, kind of thing. Whereas some people can just go out and just play for their whole lives and just do it.
Yeah, it's, I think that's the difference, really, truly becoming a professional, when you're making a living at it, and, every one of your days really count, about how you're going to perform and how you are, and you have to keep up such a high pace, to be able to compete with the rest of the world, because the rest of the world is just doing that. And that's really why I kind of wanted to get out. I didn't have a summer to myself. I was like, when the south swells would come up, all of a sudden I'd be looking at everybody out in the water, and I'm like going, oh my God, I can't, I got to play, I got to practice. But needless to say, I've gotten my share in that, and that's why I kind of went in that direction. It was, I retired when I was 37 years old, and I had 2 kids, and Shay and Shane, and I've been kind of dealing with them and just being dad, and and then I have my girlfriend of 20 years, Susie Rotman, her 3 kids, so 5 kids running around, watching them all play volleyball and doing a bunch of stuff. That's really kind of what I've been doing. And now, ultimately, right when I got out of the sport in '97, there was a couple years that went by, and I figured, okay, I better jump in and do something more. I started beach volleyball camps with St. John Smith, and St. John and I did that for 13 years. I did it for 13 years, and then and we had a bunch of those locations, even in Hawaii, coming over there, and then meeting you, which I don't recall. But
Yeah,
again, my mind's going, because we were running through thousands and thousands of kids that summer, and being a nonprofit and doing it really for free. I felt like it was time to give back, and I did that for a lengthy time. And then after that, it's been the CBVA tournaments for me, and that's been my connection with beach volleyball. Outside of wanting to coach, the top players in the world.
When you, when you look back on it, because when you started playing, beach volleyball wasn't really a professional endeavor that you could do. When you started playing, it really wasn't. There wasn't all that much money, and from what I understand, your your dad was not a huge fan of you playing beach volleyball all that much. I mean, how did you get into it and sort of break that mold? Because your dad kind of, wait, I think you're muted, or I couldn't hear you.
No,
There we
I'm
go.
still here.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I had a tough upbringing in regards to my father's wishes and wants and desires. He came to this country with $20 in a suitcase, and he didn't ever imagine me playing beach volleyball and what are you doing and you're a beach bum and everything else. And it was almost up until the point when I was a senior in high school when I was offered a number of different opportunities to a bunch of different colleges that he said, okay, you can use that as a stepping stone. But no, I got pulled out of practices in high school to go down and work in the family business, which was a loudspeaker business. And I did that, sweeping a 20,000 square foot building. It was funny. Even doing that, I remember my father so vividly going, "You're not doing it right. It's 1, 2, 3, push." And and so needless to say, he was an interesting guy. He literally was very successful, very, very smart and brilliant man. But he just didn't have the thoughts of me being, him coming to America and all of a sudden raising a kid to play beach volleyball. What are you doing? Yeah. So, but those things all change. I think ultimately, because he put me in a situation of not being able to do other sports, it really kind of focused me into the one. And I kind of, say thanks for that, because ultimately, when you grind on one thing and you find a love, which I found very quickly, it was easy to, get better and consistently get better because you're doing it over and over again. And, but, overall, started at 16, really playing my first opens, I won my first tournament, the Manhattan Open at 20. With Jim Mingus. And, needless to say, played, I don't know, I played in something like 209 finals I was in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy when I kind of think about it. 209. So, and I won 123 of those. So, there was 86 of them that I didn't win, and just imagine being in the finals and losing 86 times, that's, I don't know. I remember most of my losses and not my wins, but, again, I played overall 369 opens in my life. And that was almost playing every weekend, whether I was hurt or anything else. I continued to, play. And, so that was kind of a little bit of it.
Would you say that I guess you kind of had a pressure on yourself at a young age, because your dad or your family probably wouldn't have been okay with you playing unless you were winning? Like, you probably came home with a check and said, see, like, I can play again next week, so I'm making money. But if you had been losing, your career probably would have got cut short, it seems like. You think that's the case? Do you think that was kind of
no, absolutely. For sure that. Remember when I was coming up, I was playing with, adults. And even Jimmy Mingus, when I got the opportunity to play with him, it was, sorry, there's somebody beeping through again, excuse me. He was a good, I think, 8-9 years older than me, and so, I kind of got into a situation where, I had to learn the sport pretty quickly and at that high level. And I remember playing, like, literally one of my first tournaments I played in a novice, one of my first tournament, a novice tournament with a partner from high school. And I can remember we came through the losers bracket. We were at 9th place, and we had this team like 14-6. Okay. And needless to say, we folded our tent and we ended up losing that thing 16-14. And it sent me home crying. And I just never wanted to feel that way ever again. And number one, I never played in another novice because, when you played in a novice, being the age I was, I think I was 15, and I'm playing against 35-year-old guys, they were just, they were awfully good. And needless to say, they had a lot of time under their belt in regards to being better than I was at that time. But that was one of my first experiences. I can remember winning an A tournament with Pat Powers at Marine Street against B. Lee and Bob Peruka, and that gave me my double A when I was like 16. And then I think I got my triple A when I was 18, placing in an open with Marco Ortega up in Santa Barbara. We took a 4th place, and that's where I got my triple A. But back in those days, there was one time that was just really, I can think about it and really recall that it was really something special. All of a sudden, we got word down at Hermosa Beach at the Hermosa Open that Karch Kiraly and Marco Ortega were in the finals of the Hermosa Beach Open. And so Mark Barber, a good friend of mine, which passed this last about 4 months ago, he literally brought us down to the tournament. I can remember pulling up into the tournament, and all of a sudden, or near the poop deck at Hermosa Beach, and in an amazement. Remember, there was no cell phones back then. There was no form of communication. We just heard like there was some rumor that there was. We came down, and then there is Karch Kiraly at 16 years of age or 17 years of age, basically my same age. And I'm looking at him going, wow, well, if he can do that, I certainly want to try to do that. And so he was always a little bit ahead of me because he started the game a little bit earlier, well, a lot earlier at 6 years of age. I kind of started when I was 14. So that was inspirational, really coming down and seeing that. And then needless to say, I got to play with Marco Ortega and, placing that open. And then, the rest of it goes on and on. So.
Man, so you got your AAA at 18 and won the Manhattan Beach Open at 20. That's a quick improvement. Was the Manhattan Open, that was 81 when you won with Jim Menges?
Yeah.
Was it as big of an event as it is now?
Well, let me see if I can pull up the picture of it. I'm going to go, you can see it in the background.
Yeah, some epic photos back there.
Yeah, I got some good ones here, but let's see here. Let me just go through. That's from Rio. That's Wilt, myself, and St. John. Yeah, and there's Ron Von Hagen and Ron Lang. Yeah, maybe I didn't even have the picture of the Manhattan. Oh, there's a good Kong block. Anyway, yeah, no, you know what? To be honest with you, I never even saw the Manhattan Open, so I didn't even know what I was really getting into. And when I went down there. And the ironic thing about it is that Jim Menges and myself played the week before. And I think we took like a 7th place at Laguna Beach, which didn't fare well all that much for myself, being a young buck and trying to play with one of the best of all time. But we decided to play again. And thank God we did, because we ended up winning that following week. And, again, a big one to win.
Yeah, and not bad for your first win either.
Yeah,
That's a good one.
There's a lot of great things comes out of the tournament from Manhattan Beach, and there's a lot of negatives too. I was in the finals of that tournament 11 times. I only won 4 times. Jeez. And you'll say back in the day, Hovland and Dodd, very dominant team in the early 80s. 82, 83, 84, 85. Those guys were a handful. Tim Hovland was as athletic as any volleyball player going. And he put a lot of pressure on Sinchen. Sinchen was getting served quite a bit and had difficulty siding out, and then we finally got him. I think it was in 1986, after losing to him like 4 times. we finally beat them on their home turf. But another positive thing that I look at out of the tournament is that I think I'm only one of 2 players to win the tournament on both sides. And the other person is Ron Von Hagen, that I look up to even to this day. Doing something like that, winning the tournament on both sides, the right side and the left side, very special for me.
It's pretty impressive. You got to win one as a blocker and a defender now too. Cover everything.
I always wanted to be a defender, but I just would cringe to send St. John up to block.
You're too good at blocking.
Yeah.
When I know that you and St. John, kind of how you guys formed your partnership is always such a fascinating story to me, because you guys kind of split, right? You played like kind of half the season with St. John, but then when Karch would come back, St. John would go back and play.
Well,
with Karch.
I think he was a little misleading. I saw that interview. I don't think he was all that accurate with it. So ultimately, what happened is St. John and Karch were playing together, and they had played, I think, in one like 21 tournament, something like that. And it was even prior to me even playing the Opens, and that was like 78, 79, 80 that those guys were doing that. I think that they were competing on the national team, and then they would go out and try to play. But it all came down to where all of a sudden we were playing in 82, and then St. John came to me and says, I'm going to play with Karch at Hermosa. And I said, okay, all right. So he ended up playing with Karch, and I think it was a very selfish move back then, because it was all about the points, and there was money, and there was like some prize at the end where he wanted to be the number 1 guy, right? So he ends up playing with Karch. He ends up taking a 5th place. And I think that I played with John Hanley, and we played each other in that tournament. And I had actually one ball on Karch, a cut shot that Karch put right into my hands for game. And I ended up shanking that ball, and we ended up not scoring on that one play. And then Neil said the match turned around. But ironically, John Stevenson and John Hanley end up winning that tournament, okay? And so it wasn't that. So ultimately, then I came back to him and I said, listen, St. John, if you ever do that to me again, I'll never play with you again. You know, I mean, I don't know. I have a twin sister. I was brought into this world with a twin sister, and I've always been about team. And that was the reason why I kind of stayed with St. John, you know, for as long as I did. We played together 11 years. So ultimately, in that whole story with that's what went down. He said, okay, we're going to commit. So we're playing. And I think it's maybe the following year in 1983, Karch calls me and he says, do you want to play? And well, I kind of go, yeah, I do. And so I said, okay, we're on. And then I called up St. John. I said, St. John, I'm going to go and play with Karch. And he ultimately said, you remember what you said to me? You remember what you said to me? You said you would never play with me ever again, da-da-da-da-da. Well, I'm going to give that back to you. So all of a sudden I went, oops. Okay, all right. So I end up calling Karch back, and I said, listen, Karch, I can't. I gotta stick with St. John and you know, work this out and whatever else. So in the positive note with it all, you know, we're the most successful team of all time. And it's very difficult to, you know, play in all those tournaments and win as many as we did, being a team and not switching around and not being fresh with another player, you know, when you're going out and trying to compete each and every weekend. But, you know, that's what I recall in regards to that little controversy back in that little area back, which forced us to play together, which was a good thing, because ultimately the American public kind of grabbed a hold of us. And it wasn't like a different name was popping up each and every week. We were standard names. We were, you know, almost to the point where we were household names, and that's where the sport all of a sudden became something, and it really took off with prize money and everything else.
Did you, St. John? Go ahead, try.
Well, I was gonna say, I feel like the value of keeping a partnership together is kind of underestimated. Like, people tend to get sidetracked and want to chase the golden apple, right, as the saying goes, where a good partner shows up, you had two bad tournaments, and then you're like, oh, this player's playing great, this is my easy in. It's kind of like taking the easy way, but sticking together for long periods of time, I think over time it gets you more victories, gets you more obviously you're just going to play better as a team, and it tends to work out better.
Yeah, Tri, the one thing that I really truly recognize is that there was this big old target on our back. Right. And when we were called up at any tournament, you see all the hundreds and hundreds of people running to that court just to get an eye's view, get a good seat to go and watch us play. You had to kind of come with your game each and every time. It didn't matter if it was the first game of the day or anything else. So for what I'm trying to say is that, like, for example, if I switched partners and I was playing with somebody new, it's a little deflected. There's a change in that way where the pressure is not as mounted as the greatest team of all time, the team that's won all these tournaments. So by me doing that along with St. John, I think that there was a lot of positive, but there was a little bit of some negative too, because we started winning at such a clip that I'm not going to say the sport got boring, but there was a number of years where everybody was like going, oh, okay, ESPN, okay, those guys, oh, not those guys again. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. We won 115 opens together. I got to put down a couple notes. Karch and Kent won 75 opens together. Needless to say, they didn't play as long as us, but I can't put that in kind of any context, because it is what it is. You're playing, and you play for those periods of time. Even Phil and Todd, they won 65 tournaments together. Hovland and Dodd won 53 together. Only 53. Now you can imagine that we're basically double the amount of tournaments than those guys. And but again, it was kind of like we were serving a purpose, and the purpose was to be as successful and to represent the sport, and then ultimately really doing that, I think really made the sport a bigger sport. And needless to say, the bottom line was to get the sport in the Olympic Games, which we did. If we weren't the team that we were, I don't think that possibly that the sport would have gotten there, because of we were successful internationally. I think, St. John and I played together 11 international tournaments, and we won 10 of them at that time. And yes, that's the beginning of the world tour and everything. But, we represented the sport in such a way that the sport was eventually, brought into the Olympic Games. I got a picture, I think, sitting here. I'm going to go through it and try to go back at it. Yeah, it was right here. And this was an important one. I don't know if you can happen to see that in the background right there. This is from Almería, Spain. And this was the trials for basically the Olympic Games, the Olympics before. And we ended up winning that tournament. You can see the Brazilians took second and third. But that was a very controversial tournament that we participated in. And we understood the value of it, because there had to be a demonstration sport. It had to go through a demonstration aspect of it. So we ended up playing that tournament. And I think that maybe even St. John had talked about this, that we had gotten fined from the AVP. And I think it was $70,000. Yeah, it was a big number, $70,000. It was the biggest fine in the history of professional sports at that time. Truly, there wasn't anything bigger. I mean, that we got fined $70,000. So needless to say, we got people involved and we ended up getting our money back. But the AVP with John Stevenson, I think, at the helm at the time, they just didn't understand the value of what we were doing. And on the flip side of it, what was so ironic was it was during the Seal Beach tournament, which Karch and Kent had an opportunity to win 13 in a row, or actually surpass Jim Mingus and Greg Lee's record of 13 in a row. And they ended up losing, I think, to Whitmarsh and Dodd in that tournament. And that stopped that streak. So that was kind of funny that we didn't play in that, and that ended up happening that way. But again, that was the opening of, getting the sport in the Olympic Games. And that was kind of really what I was thinking, and what I really wanted to have happen is I wanted to have the people around the world play the game of beach volleyball at that high level, and to do what I did. And that is it's simple to say, but the feeling of going out on the beach, playing in front of thousands of people, winning a tournament, drinking a beer, jumping in the water, it's just, there's nothing better in the world. And, now there's over 200 countries that, promote their teams and their countries to play the sport. I think that we were able to kind of take the world and just turn it just a little bit by this, a number of great things happening to us.
You mentioned, that you and St. John, most successful beach partnership in history with 115 wins. But I also think probably the most important team in the sports history, because like you said, you guys were you skipped Seal Beach to go to Spain, which was one of the events that helped to get it into the Olympics. But you guys were also pushing for, we mentioned it before, that picture you had of Ipanema, those original exhibitions in Brazil. Tell me about that experience, just like pushing for it, because I know it wasn't a unanimous thing for you guys to push for the sport to go worldwide. I know that a lot of the guys in the AVP were like, why would we go overseas when we have the sport like on a stranglehold here in the US? Was that
Loyola's happy about it?
Yeah, well, he is, and he was one of the ones who really benefited, Jose Loyola and Gino. Yeah. That paved their way to kind of break apart the monopoly that the FIVB had in regards to the players playing elsewhere. And I wish that truly that the players could come and play in different parts of the world whenever they wanted to. For example, wouldn't it be sweet to see the Manhattan Open become truly one of the biggest tournaments in the world, where you're having the top players play there? I gotta tell you, it's not an easy place to play. And, it sure would be fun to go and see those players play in those locations. But, I don't know, gosh, I got so many thoughts in my head right now with, how everything went down. But, there was also another thing that basically what went down in the very beginning, where St. John and I were playing, and this was kind of another kind of, I can understand it, but I don't understand it. St. John and I were very successful in 1986. I think we won something like 18 out of 24 events that year, and all the other ones we took second and maybe one third. So then all of a sudden, St. John is in communication with the Brazilian Federation and this Fernando Varna Ortzen. That's a promoter of the sport down in Brazil. And he invites St. John to come down, and St. John doesn't pick me. He picks Pat Powers. And Pat Powers, because he had just come off the World Championships indoors, and I think was maybe voted the most valuable player. I know that he was unstoppable in that tournament, and ultimately it turned out to be one of the best players indoors. He was asked to come down. So they had some name recognition along with Montenegro, the Brazilian player, and I can't remember right now the other partner. But, they ended up playing a little bit of a demonstration to start off with, and it was very successful. And so the following year, then St. John, said, okay, I don't know why he wanted to change, but he then, asked me to go down there, and we ended up winning the first World Championships. And those World Championships went on I played in, I think, 6 of them, and I won 5 of them in either Copacabana and Ipanema. And just crazy times with the crowds and the amount of players that were coming from around the world were pretty impressive even back then, where we had some fields of, the Russians were coming out there, Japanese teams were coming out and playing. We had teams from Spain, Australia, Julian Prosser, Andrew Burden. I remember those guys. They almost beat us in one of the matches to send them into a semifinals and knock us out. But very difficult playing conditions for the most part, playing down there in Brazil. I'll share one story with you that I felt like I was one of the best conditioned athletes in the world at that time. And I went down there to play the tournament, and we ended up playing in the finals, and they started it at 12 o'clock noon. And it's no joke, about 135 degrees. Okay. And there is no wind, and it's like 100% humidity. And if you know anything about humidity, it's just, there's nothing you can do to get in shape for that. It's just sucks the life out of you. And and even in talking about sucks the life out of you, I can remember in that tournament, went on for that match went on for 4.5 hours. During the match, we would go to the corner of the arena. We wouldn't even sit down. We would try to get to the corner of the arena and try to get some wind, just a little breath of wind to get to feel something. Okay. So now we're at 15-14 for one of the championships. I think it was in 88 or 87. I'm not sure. Again, we were playing Bernard Rosman, 5-time Olympian, and his partner, which was this guy that could throw the ball around, and they actually allowed the open hand tip at that time. It's 15-14, and they call a timeout, and I come stumbling basically into our little sitting area, and I sit down, and I can just see water beating up out of my stomach. My eyeballs are spinning in my head. And I look at St. John, and my heart is just like going, just like a cartoon. And I'm going, St. John, I don't care who wins or loses, get me the hell out of here. I mean, I was just done. I was cooked. And St. John pauses there for a second, and he goes and looks at me, and he says, Randy, side out one more time. That guy feels the same way you do. And I'm kind of looking at him going, okay, what a line. And the referee's whistling us out, and I'm come stumbling out there, and we serve Bernard the next ball. And Bernard goes up to jump, and he goes into a full body lock. And he pops the ball basically up and over the net. And I'm still watching him down on the ground. I'm looking at him down on the ground, and we're playing against one guy for the finishing this whole thing off. And I don't even set the ball with my hands. I'm just going there to bump set to put the ball up somewhere so St. John kind of shoot it against this one guy for the championship. And that was a very memorable moment for me because of the conditions and what my body went through. And the only thing I can compare it to is the Hawaiian try help me out, the Iron Man. With the lady that's walking sideways, into the very end of it. Well, I was basically like that, and it was pretty incredible what my body went through. And I'm kind of fair weathered, I'm not really made. My father was from Poland. My mother from Germany, Scandinavian. What's a guy down there in Ipanema trying to go and play for that long? I mean, it was unbelievable what I pulled off. But that was a big tournament. But I remember also too in 1989. Okay, so I lost my father in '88 in September, and to an abdominal aneurysm. He died at an early age of 67, and I just worked out every single day. And I just vowed to my dad that I'm going to go out and win that tournament. The next tournament I play, I'm going to go and win it for him. And so we ended up winning the tournament. And all I can remember about that tournament is that I went running out of the stadium. I went running down Ipanema for several blocks to get away from everybody, to have a moment. And you can kind of see it on me, I can recollect it so clearly that, I kind of go through the same emotions, and that was that I was just, crying like a baby. And I was there for 5-10 minutes, between these cars that were and I was on the curb sitting down, and then all of a sudden I look up and there must be 500 people around me just looking up going, what's wrong? And so then I end up gathering myself, and I end up walking back into the ceremony and what have you. And in that same tournament, we had basically, now the tournament's over. We're in the stadium, and we are now are wanting to have these security guards of these huge guys, and there's about 15 of them, and they're circling their arms around, and they're locked up, and we're in the middle of them. And so now they've opened up the little door on the side to get us out, and walking across from Copacabana to the Copacabana Palace. All of a sudden, I'm walking there, and I don't have any thongs on. And like I said, it was 135 degrees. The street was melting. And all of a sudden, my feet got so hot that I just bolted out of the group, and I started to run. And I got across the way, and I got into the hotel, and the red coat guy opens the door for me as I'm kind of running in there. And all of a sudden, I look back, and there are thousands of people running after me. Okay, so now I get up to the second floor, up to the lobby, and I pull the drapes back, and I look out, and they're storming the whole hotel. They're up against the glass and everything. And now St. John's in there, and they're basically trying to get a game plan for us to get out of there, because now there's so many people. And the owner of the hotel is going, listen, you can't go out the back door. These people will be here all day. What are we going to do? So the next thing you know, they got a plan where they got this Humvee, and they're backing up this Humvee up the stairs. Okay. And I'm looking down, I'm looking at this whole scene, and there's just literally thousands of people down there, and they're they want to see us. We are the Beatles. It's just crazy. Yeah. So they go to us and they say, we are going to guarantee your safety. I'm looking at 2,000 people out there that want to just get a hold of me, just to touch me. There wasn't anything positive or negative, but it was just that it was stardom. Remember, we had been on El Globo TV, which is basically NBC, CBS, all of them put together. So when El Globo was on, the entire country watched. Right. Literally an entire country. So now I'm at this moment where they're protecting us, and they lock arms, and they make this like little area where we can walk through to get to this Humvee. And they open up the glass door, and I got a towel, I think, over my head, and it's just the screaming. Okay, so we get into the Humvee, and I'm sitting in the Humvee, and there St. John sits right next to me, and we can't even sit next to the windows because your people are just draped over the car, and they're and now the car starts to move, and people are just sliding off the sides of it, and we would needless to say, oh wow, there's a cute one, so we'd roll down the window and grab their little. Well, we got to take advantage of that. It was huge. You can't understand. You can't ever put it into any kind of even for any volleyball player to this day. We became the Kings of Rio, which was a name that was given to Ayrton Senna, the race car driver, and that the Brazilians gave us that name away from their people was very, very special. And to this day, kind of funny. During the 2016 games, I was down there, which was actually my first Olympic Games that I had been involved with for beach volleyball or anything outside of any of it. I was with a buddy, and we were walking down Copacabana, and no joke, there's this guy, and he's a bum, and he's lying on the park bench. And he all of a sudden sits up, and he sees me, and he goes, "The King of Rio." I mean, this is no joke. I mean, I looked at my buddy like I'm looking around like, okay, where's the camera? Somebody's setting me up with this all. There's something going on. But that's how popular we became. And so it was really fun going down there and talking to the locals and the people. And they would say, "Oh my God, we watched you. My parents forced me to watch you, and I can't believe I'm sitting next to you and talking to you and everything else." So huge impact during the right time. And then needless to say, then coming back, and it kind of this all piggybacked on number one 84 Olympic Games with the U.S. winning a gold medal. In 88, then I forget how we did. I think we took a bronze, but I'm not quite sure. No, we might have won in 88 too. And so there was a lot of momentum. And then us playing from 82 and then being on as much as we were in America on all of the channels, from Hot Summer Nights on ESPN, which was perfectly played because they would put on all the sporting would be over for the entire day. And then ultimately at 6 o'clock, this would come on. It would be the only thing on. And so the rest of America would watch these things. And then they'd replay that like 2 days ago. It would come on like on a Sunday, maybe on a Monday, and even on a Wednesday. And so we were getting all of this exposure, which was just crazy. But yeah, there's a lot. There was a lot of great time.
Yeah, dude, that's so cool. Because that story in Ipanema, that's when the sport was pretty much brand new over there. It's not like they had taken years and years to develop this fan base. It must have caught on fast in Brazil.
Well, that was during the time, 84. I think you had the Brazilians had a very, very good team indoors. And they were one of the better teams around the world. And yeah, it was progressing as it was in America. And I think that, they were smart enough to kind of, promote their players and make them name brand people. To this day, they're heroes in a lot of the Brazilians' eyes, And I think that that's kind of one thing that we miss out to this day and age. But there's a lot that goes along with that, with getting that recognition. You got to be able to give back, and you got to be able to be there for the extra. I can't tell you the amount of time that St. John and I spent signing autographs, promoting the sport around the world. I've signed probably 50,000 autographs in my life,
Do you think
I don't know, it's crazy.
That plays more on the people running the business side of things, or obviously on the athletes as well, but with what you see nowadays with how our sport is now, obviously the players don't really have quite as much of an impact, but I feel like a lot of the time just the opportunity is not there to do that. We could do autograph sessions, but if there's only 10 people there, then it's not that impactful.
Well, yeah, it is, but you got to understand those 10 people talk to 10 people, and they talk to 10 people, and remember, it wasn't like we had hundreds and hundreds of people, but if there was just only one, we would be there for them and spend that extra time. And really kind of unique because not very many sports you were able to kind of rub shoulders with your favorite player, being a fan and get that close, especially in this day and age. But I think that there's still opportunity for all of the players to promote themselves and to kind of think about how to, just create a better brand for themselves. And there's a lot of ways. It's about going out of your way and doing it. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. Totally.
Yeah, for sure. You guys, I feel like were heavily involved yourselves in it wasn't like we're just going to wait for the opportunities to come to us. You guys were heavily involved in the business side of things, from what I understand.
Well, that was a very unique thing too, because, when we were on TV as much as we were, needless to say, sponsors wanted to come to us and be a part of that. And I had Ray-Ban, I had Fila, I had Coppertone, I had all types of sponsors. And needless to say, with that comes a lot of, great opportunity. And one of the great opportunities that I had was signing a contract with Fila that paid me 10% royalty of all the beach volleyball sales. And so ultimately in my first year, they paid me $25,000, and then I got 10% of all sales. So the first year they sold $2.5 million. So my next year, I was making $250,000. The next year it went to 3.5. I was making 350. The next year it went to 4.5. I was making 450. The next year it went to, no, honestly, it went to $5.5 million, and I was making 10%. And even at that time, I don't think Air Jordan was making that type of percentage off of the product. And so ultimately at that last year, I made $650,000 just from Fila in regards to the sponsorship. Yeah.
And
that's crazy.
I mean, that's kind of the equivalent of having $1.5 million nowadays, right? Like with inflation and all that.
Yeah, it's certainly something. Again, that was because, I was, marketable in that way. I was able to, touch a lot of people's lives, and that product was obviously being sold. But on a funny note with it all, even in Hawaii, this was going on. They used to make my headbands, my Fila headbands that I still have, a bunch of them. And I'm sorry we weren't able to get together in person, because I had some tank tops and some Fila headbands for you guys.
Oh man,
I'll have to send it down so you can go put it in the background or something there.
We'll get you on another episode after COVID.
Yeah, for sure. The funny thing was with those headbands is that the Japanese were coming over to Hawaii, to the Waikiki location, okay? And they were buying those things for belts, okay? The headband, because they wanted the printing, and they were using it as belts. They had the size, 23 waist, all those tiny Japanese. But it was kind of funny that they were selling those things like hotcakes out of there. And there was a lot of really cool stuff that Fila did for me, but those were a little bit of the days. So, why I got into disclosing that was that, obviously we knew what we were making, and people would ask, kind of specifically, how much money we're making from sponsorship and everything else. Well, we would always kind of even exaggerate it a little bit more, because then those other players and other sponsors would go, wow, he's getting paid that. Okay, well, we got to pay that. So it kind of escalated everybody's sponsorship in a kind of a funny way, because we were just trying to make the sport bigger. And that was kind of one way to kind of cheat it a little bit, but to kind of put a little bit more dollars into the players' pockets. And we were on a big roll. I think ultimately when I got out of the sport in '97, the sport took a different direction with the AVP kind of after the Olympic Games and in '96, where we were going to parking lots and we were playing in locations that were fenced off, and they were thinking about the more importance of making $30,000 in revenue of people coming into the gate rather than keeping it open and letting everybody in and having a sponsor, cover that as it was in the past. And so the sport really changed. And I really didn't like what the direction, and that's kind of where I said to myself, well, listen, I played pretty much every tournament I could play. I think I won every tournament in all the locations, at least once. So and then I had 2 kids, and I wanted to make a little change in my life. Just got married, and
it's really cool.
Yeah.
When you and St. John, you made kind of a difficult decision too, because I mean, you were getting fined for going overseas. Like you mentioned, you were playing in all the locations, you won in all the locations. What was that decision-making process when you and St. John were like, listen, like we can go try to build this overseas, but it's not going to sit great back in the U.S. with the AVP, and it obviously didn't, especially when St. John was kind of pushed out as president in '90. Were you always set on expanding the game around the world, even if it cost you guys a fair chunk of change in Seal Beach and probably put some tension on a lot of relationships?
Well, I can understand them wanting us to play on American soil in front of our fans and in front of the sponsors. And that's what I think was the biggest impact, that we were the team that everybody recognized. And even Karch and Kent, even at that time, they were just early in their careers as a partnership. And I think ultimately, by taking it's like, taking one of the top seeds out of any of these tennis tournaments. And as it's been happening, there's always going to be a little bit of an asterisk, put aside to it. But I think that ultimately where, I think John Stevenson felt like, that we were, not doing things in his favor. But ultimately, remember, we had already played 87, 88, 89 international events. I think that even it expanded to playing outside of Spain in '93. We played 2 events in Australia in '90 and '91, which we ended up winning. We ended up playing a tournament in France. We ended up winning that tournament. So we had already been in the kind of the game mode of creating the sport to be an international sport, and we felt like that there was a bigger importance to that than there was really to come and play at our home fields, because we had already done that, and it wasn't like we were taking away a whole lot from the AVP at that time. And ultimately, as history will show, that it wasn't anything that was taken away, it was given. And we were just the people that really kind of went to war. And remember, it still took us to win those tournaments. And it wasn't just like, hey, we're going to go and leave. We're going to go and play in this tournament, And God forbid if we were to have lost any of those things. I don't know. As a player, it was very important for me to win. And I did whatever it took really to do that. Even playing with St. John at times, it was difficult because he had a lot of injuries. He had a lot of little things going on with his knee, his elbow, his wrist. Those are those 86 tournaments that we lost, There's a lot of downtime, things that kind of didn't go in our favor, and there wasn't really anything I could do. I stepped over to the middle of the court. I'd push them over like we were playing mixed, in some of these tournaments, and against Hovland and Dodd with those lollipops, and they couldn't get the ball to St. John at one time. But I don't even think that we won the tournament in Cleveland. But we had them all nervous. St. John couldn't even play. A guy couldn't even jump. He couldn't hit. He couldn't do anything. But yeah, again, I can go on and on. I'm thinking about so many different moments and times. But yeah, ultimately, it's I think what we did was a benefit. I was never going to go and want to take anything away from anybody, or needless to say, hurt the sport. But a lot of players in the political arena felt otherwise.
Yeah. It had to have been a really cool moment for you to see it get into the games, which was 93. They officially gave it the go-ahead?
Yeah. It was in 93. In fact, everybody asked me always, like, how did you participate? Well, we went to a bunch of different meetings with St. John and I, and talking to Ruben Acosta, which was the president of the FIVB, and Antonio Samaranch, which was the president of the IOC. He was the most powerful man in the world in regards to sports, because he oversaw everything. And I was on my knees in the stadium in Copacabana, in front of him, asking him, can we get beach volleyball into the Olympic Games? And he looked at me and he said, yes, we will. And at that moment, and there's a magazine, there's a picture of me basically with that photo. For me, probably the most important time in my life with the sport, because, especially during those times, there was a lot of different sports that were trying to get into the Olympic Games. And it became this demonstration thing, like windsurfing and all these different, sports were getting in. Well, we kind of had the in on it because we were already a sport. We were just trying to create a different sport, and it came down then to 24 men's teams and 24 women's teams to come and play. And so then they added that up, 48, okay, 96 players. Okay, that's not so bad in regards to allowing this new sport to come in and the amount of athletes that they were letting in to play in the Olympic Games. So we were just a different variation of the Olympic indoor game. And so that obviously we had a little bit of an in. And so it kind of got pushed right through. But certainly that moment with Antonio Samaranch, I'll never forget. Thank you for him.
Yeah. And it, man, I know that it was a big thing at the Olympic qualifying, had to be established after that. And I know that a lot of guys voted for the trial. A lot of guys wanted the St. John in particular, I think, wanted the FIVB route. Where were you on that? Were you more in favor of the Olympic trials, which ended up happening?
I certainly, to this day, I'm still in favor of trials, because I feel like if you want to try out for your Olympic team, why don't you go and play against other Americans to represent your country? It's just like me trying to get on the national team and play. Well, you're a young player. You get on there, you practice, you're a part of that team, and now you play against the rest of the world. They're not telling you how that goes. That's how we represent, and that's how it should be represented. Now, the flip side of that is going to be, oh, well, look at what happened to Randy during the 96, trials, where I was in the final game. I was playing with Adam Johnson, and we were blowing through teams. We were beating teams 15-0, 15-1. I think we beat the semifinals 15-3. We got then to play Mike Dodd and Mike Whitmarsh, and a ball came off of a banner behind me as balls were flying everywhere, because this was USA Volleyball's kind of first trials, and they just dumped out all these volleyballs, and they were everywhere. So you just pick one up, serve one, pick one up, serve one. And one came off the banner as I was jump serving, and I landed straight on it with my right foot. And my foot tried to go in, and then it went out. And basically it was a double whammy on the twisting of the ankle, and it was about a minute to go before NBC came on, and I've only watched it once because it was really a downtime in my life because not only did I not get that opportunity, but I let down my partner, and that was Adam Johnson. To this day, I really never said I'm sorry, but he understood and knew exactly what it was all about. But it was really something that got taken away from me. And, again, I am not an Olympian. I've never gone to the Olympic Games. I am not an All-American, indoors. I am, I'm not a gold medalist, but I am in the, World Volleyball Hall of Fame. And so they obviously saw something in me that, I didn't have the total credentials in regards to, getting to that level. But, I definitely, some things went in my favor and a couple things didn't go in my favor. And Neil said those trials were very difficult. And, then ultimately, where the players got all together and said, okay, we're going to create these trials. And yes, we want to do this. And we could have said no. And then we could have gone like, okay, number 1, number 2, number 3. Okay, that's who's going to the Olympic Games. St. John ended up going and playing with Carl Hinkle. And he ended up, kind of writing his own way to the Olympic Games, so to speak, because he, those things were basically made up as he went. And he played, and that's when he had kind of the falling out with the AVP. So he wanted to go and do what was going to benefit him internationally. And so it really wasn't all that fair because he was the only team that didn't go through the trials to represent. And so a lot of people don't know that. But I think that's probably what made the game between him and Karch so meaningful. Because it was the people that kind of got in there on the side door versus the person that earned it. Yeah. And, as it turned out, Karch and Kent ended up beating St. John and Carl. And I know that was a very close and an important game, to getting to the finals of that tournament. And then needless to say, the story goes, Karch Kiraly and Kent Steffes, a gold medal, and Mike Dodd and Mike Whitmarsh, silver. But I feel like throughout my career, even I was on the national team in the early 80s, and then I left it on my own because I just didn't want to be in an apartment with no bed and sleeping on the ground and working out down at San Diego, and then working with my family's business at the same time and doing all that. I opted to say, hey, listen, I need to do something different. And then kind of timing was made perfect by having St. John and Tim Hovland being kicked off the national team. And again, I left it on my own accord. Those guys got kicked off because of whatever, with Doug Beal and whatever else that was going on. So that opened up the door for St. John and I to play together. And then we played our first tournament in Santa Barbara, won the first tournament, and then, went for 11 years from there on out. So some good things happen and some bad things happen. And I, needless to say, have been on the winning side more than the losing.
Right. But it's crazy how in a sport like ours where it's tournaments and certain tournaments are worth more than others, so much of it can come down to timing and a lot of times luck. I feel like I've been on the short end of the stick a few times in terms of just getting injured at the wrong time or being out at the wrong time and whatnot. And then you see a lot of players who have been healthy at the right time, played well that one weekend or, like got in the back door or something like that. And really, like, if you get one really good, strong victory to your name, your resume, it can kind of make someone's career and really like put you on the map long term, and vice versa can happen. It's just so cutthroat.
Yeah, try, but I think it's tenfold for you now, and it's even
Right.
more important for you now. It wasn't that way for us at that time. We didn't have that exposure, the worldwide exposure, as you guys did. And to comment on your injuries and everything else, one of them obviously was self-done that
Right.
kind of took you off in a little bit of your timing. But that's how kind of life goes, and
Yep.
you learn from those things. I think truly, Try, you've got the opportunity. They're right there. You're going to be right there, and we're
Yep.
going to be all rooting for you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
My new motto is the football motto. It's your best ability is your availability. So just be on the court, be available. If I can get myself on the court, the rest
Yeah.
it should be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that leads me to talk about, the coaching and the opportunities. It's been a very interesting one. I've been in the sport. I've never really left it, but I still to this day, want to take a team like yourselves and, produce. There's a lot of, I'm not going to take anything away because I think all the coaches out there are obviously putting in their time and their lives into a sport that there's not a whole lot of juice that you get out of it. Okay. And I think as they get older and you guys get older, you'll realize that we did it for the love of it, but there wasn't any really financial gain. And so all of those people that are the coaching and coaching the teams today, my hat goes out to, but I do look at a lot of the coaches and I say to myself, they've never seen the window. They don't know what it's like. They don't know what to do at that one moment.
Right.
Okay. I'll kind of confess to you, Try. I kind of burned you. I kind of burned you one tournament, and it wasn't really that like I was wanting to do that, but it was the Manhattan Open, and it was Patterson and Gibb, yeah, and I told Jake to serve that ball down the line on you, and not only did he serve the ball down the line, but he knew that wind blew in just a little bit, and so when you received that ball, it was looking like it was going out, but you had to take it. It was just too close. Right. And then you're out at the pin. He comes up and takes your cross court away, comes around, grabs his ball over the shot, and he did it twice, and you shot that ball over the line. And he after he scored that first point, and I think that put him up 15-14, he said, "Who said that?" And I said, "I did. Do it again." and ultimately, again, Try. I wasn't trying to do. He served the ball perfectly in the perfect spot. And if you've played a bunch of times in Manhattan, you'll understand what I'm really talking about. That little wind that comes across from outside from the beach and blows that on the south side. It just blows it in just a little bit. And again, and I'm trying to go back into the coaching aspect of things. It's about being there and knowing what to do at the very end. Right. There was I'd have to say only maybe one other person that I could, put a finger on that knew how to do that, and that's Karch Kiraly. When it's all of a sudden said and done, and it came down to those couple points, what do you do? How do you do it? And how do you, not steal the game, but be successful? And a lot of times I can look at a match now and watch the player go and get into a serving area, and I can tell you if it's going to be successful or not, just from where he's standing and where he's serving, because there's specific areas, and it's amazing to me when I watch a game. I go, why are they just serving the player? Why is the ball just going to the player? And that's, I used to, as a player, I used to get out there and just take 2 bags of balls, and I used to Just serve, 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 serve on the rainiest days, the coldest days. I'd get up there and jump serve. I was like kind of one of the first ones to bring the jump serve in the sport. And it's just because I wanted to put obviously the offensive team on defense and try to then, get them off the net and try to score a point. I think that is really, truly one of the biggest things that I think a player could really work on. So like I say, if I'm a coach and I said to you, okay, and going back into the beginning of this interview about, the girls that I said, okay, we want you to go in jump serve and I want you to jump serve and make something happen. Well, if you were to jump serve and just serve for an entire week, you didn't do anything else, how would you be? Right? How would you be? Well, you'd be pretty darn good. You'd be pretty darn good. But when was the last time somebody went out there for an entire week and just served balls? Okay? I don't think it's happened, And so, there's a little bit of some input for you to go and bang it, because I love how you approach the ball and how you hit the ball and everything else. And I think your partner has got to kind of put a little bit of heat. If as you guys know, you're obviously more involved than I am, but the international teams not only are jump serving, each and every time. I know that Latvia, kind of throws in a little bit of a variation of a jump serve with some spin or everything else. But pretty much the bigger teams,
Mole and Sorum?
Sorum and Mole, they put pace on the ball. They're putting them. Avondro is a perfect example. I actually got to that kid when he was playing back in Florida, and we took some time and he was playing with Solberg, and I said, hey, go from here, serve this ball this way, serve this ball. Well, the next thing you know, he's basically serving Phil off the court by putting pressure and serving to lines. And I personally am in the favor of serving the ball to the lines and really, but creating angles to it. It's like this, you guys. It's like, and I say this to a lot of people. So, you've got on the women's side, you've got the Canadian team, Paven. She's left-handed, big girl, great volleyball player. Everybody serves her to the middle of the court. Well, that's to her left side. That's to her dominant hand. You don't want to do that. You want to go and serve her over to this other way, okay? Because she's off balance here. To know where it goes. So, and it goes the same way with a right-handed player, by going and serving him, to the opposite side, being a left sider. Now you serve the ball to the far corners or to the sidelines, but at angles where if you almost come out of the middle or thereabouts, and it's always a threat to go down the middle. So now all of a sudden, I'm serving this ball cross court with big heat. Well, you think that you're going to come back and be able to pass a ball out of the middle after I've come to a couple balls at the angle? There's no way. Right. There's no way. There's just too much pressure. And then what happens is that now you've got the player thinking, and that's what you want to do to your opponent, is to make them think. Mm-hmm. But as a player, don't ever think. Don't ever think. It's point game, and all you got to do is receive a ball. Well, you've already shown them exactly how it is, what you're going to do. Oh, I'm going to hit the ball across the court. I'm going to beat that guy, okay? Well, it doesn't happen like that. Don't think, just react and go. But, again, that's from 369 opens. And, I had to try to block everybody out.
I need the think part, and then I need to turn it off to the don't.
Yeah. And try, that's like, playing in the subconscious, and again, there's so many different little things that went on in my career, but, I learned through hypnosis a way of concentrating out on the court by essentially when I put that headband on and I'd tie that thing up and I'd step on, I would be in that zone. I wouldn't be thinking. I would, there were certain things, I ran across a gentleman that would work on me, after the tournaments. And, there were some times where I'd get injured and they'd have to do some deep tissue stuff. Well, he would put me under, and at first I was like, okay, he's gonna make me into a donkey, I'm gonna go hee haw, hee haw, and all of a sudden I'm going okay, and so he starts to go, when your right hand touches your cheek, you're in the deepest of sleep. Well, that didn't work, and then all of a sudden he tries this with the left hand, and all of a sudden I'm like looking at my hand, and it's coming up, and it's touched, and I'm now in this deep kind of sleep, and to make a long story short, in all of that, there was so many unbelievable things that came out of that, because I would basically play in a recorder. Randy Stoklos, Randy, you're the best volleyball player in the world. Randy, you're the best volleyball player in the world. Randy, you're the best volleyball player in the world. And so when I would be put under and he would work on me and I wouldn't feel anything, okay, he would play this. Click. Randy, you're the best player in the world. Now, you're the best volleyball player in the world, okay? And I keep on telling, and people have said that to you, and people have said it to you, and they say it and keep on saying it to you. Well, there's got to be all of a sudden a self-belief that you are,
right?
And yet that's becoming the best, and that's knocking everything else out of the thought, but except for just being as good as you can be. But again, along with that comes a lot of hours of training, making sure that you're in your highest physical ability, the opportunities are there and that you take advantage of them. Some of them are things that you don't want to do, but a lot of times you have to do to get over that to the next level and to the highest level. And I think that there's a lot of really great volleyball players going on right now, and there's a lot of different action going on right now in regards to their styles. To be honest with you, if I was taking a team, I would have the blockers swing block. Swing block. Yeah. Yep. You have to swing block now. You've got to be, because the options are just that. And you can't just shuffle over and go straight up. You got to go, you got to swing block, and you got to take cross court away. Okay. If the guy can hit the line, let him hit the line. Okay. Mm-hmm. Because where does everybody want to hit the ball? Everybody wants to hit the ball cross court. But I think that that's the next level of our sport. I think that there's some really, really good stuff. Obviously, is it Grambula?
Karambula, yeah.
Yeah. He is, he's kind of changed things up with his partner and the style and everything. But you've got to do that, and you've got to do it a lot, because remember, when you're off balance, things can go against you. But if you practice it enough to hone the skills that everything's accurate, well, then that's fine. But if you're just trying to do it, it's like, for example, I came up to the Australian team some years ago, Schumann and his partner, and they would put this ball up on, they try to put the ball up on one all the time, okay? And half of the time they were successful, and half of the time they weren't. Right. And I came up to like their statisticians, and I said, okay, what kind of success do you guys? And he's, we have all the success and we have all the numbers and everything else. And I said to him, well, let's forget about that. When was the last time you won a tournament?
Right.
Okay. And it literally comes down to that. So you can experiment with it, but if you're going to do it, you got to do it full on. You got to do it a lot. And I do like the option. The option is, it just almost has to happen now. The court's obviously smaller than what we played in, which enables the ball to be received which seems to be a little bit easier, even though the guys have gotten bigger and they're jump serving the ball harder and everything else. It's again, it's all about putting pressure on your opponent, and I think it's kind of funny, So, for example, now you're playing a team that is putting the ball up on two and jumping. Well, I watched a little bit of it with Sorum and Mole, and they were playing. The Russians don't do it. Krishilnikov doesn't do it as much. In fact,
can still get up and bang on two. He doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. And well, it is what it is. They're big guys. I got to work with Krishilnikov. I've got some video in Russia that I was working with him for a couple of weeks there, and I've got video of it. I have never posted it. He was 16 years of age, and he was there, and you could see that he was, had some skills, and he got after it, He doesn't do it as much. I know Latvia has been doing it, and they were kind of starting to do it. They kind of throwing those quick sets on the outside. But what if you put up a sky ball and it goes to the back middle of the line? Who's running what? There's no, you know what I mean? I mean, okay, yeah, but that guy's hitting a ball that's 10 feet off the net. You know what I mean? And there's some things that still need to be put in players' arsenals in regards to thinking about what they want to do. Now, different game, different era, different time, but St. John Smith was very successful in doing that by breaking out the sky ball at a moment that, and it wasn't anything else but something that was different. Now I think that with the teams that are running these balls on two and what have you, you certainly will take away the two ball if you put up a ball that's a lot higher, and put a little pressure on them. And that needs to be done at apropos times. It's funny, anybody who's played the game and all of a sudden receives a sky ball, it's a little bit different. The ball just doesn't go in front of you. It kind of goes up. All of a sudden now you're hitting a deeper ball. Right. The court seems a little shorter and everything else. So just a little food for thought. But again, that's a person that's been in the sport for, 35 years.
Yeah, I feel like the success rate that they look at when teams are running these, when you execute it perfectly, the success rate is extremely high.
Yeah.
I think something that maybe the Australians aren't looking at is how often are you executing it perfectly and how often are you putting yourself in a worse situation. And that's when I play them, I'm like, I'd love for you to pass it over here, sprint way over here, try to hit one too, but you're falling down and you never have it on your shoulder.
Yeah.
You gotta base it off of your personnel and how well you can execute it. Like a Hayden can shovel a ball with his platform on two almost perfect. Quality, better than almost anyone. Like Adrian can do it. But if other people try to run Adrian's system or Hayden's system, like you're just taking yourself out of system and playing into the opponent's hands.
Yeah. Try the one thing that it's interesting is that, the women, they do it, but they don't do it in a fast way. You know what I mean? Yeah. They do it in I'm going to hit left side. I'm going to hit right side. I'm going to push the ball over here, do this, that. I think it's really readable because most of the time they're trying to hit to the fat of the court, and that's a cross court ball.
I think the girls should run slide.
Say it again.
Like the indoor slide off one foot? Yeah. Super quick, just shoot. Imagine if Pavin came over off her left foot with the left.
Yeah, no, that's certainly, and all those things are great ideas, but you've got to have some athletic people to be able to do those things. And I think that literally a lot of the players that are playing the game today are just that. They're very athletic. And, I don't know about the pairings that we have for America right now, in regards to the best combinations that we could send to the Olympic Games to have them compete. On the women's side, not taking anything away from Carrie's partner, but not the best of choices. Obviously Alex and Kleinman and her partner are they're going to be definitely right there. They're solid. They're a solid team. But you know, there's some international teams on the women's side, that are going to be pretty strong. The Brazilians, I think there's a German team, Huber. There's a couple teams out there that even the team from Australia, Clancy
And Artacho.
and yeah, so they're and I think even like Clancy, I was down there a number of times, talking to the girls and motivating them and everything else. And, I really wanted to take over that team and have them, because her athleticism, and her opportunity of, doing what she does. I don't know if right now that during this whole time that she's had enough exposure to high level volleyball. And, you can't just go all of a sudden be playing and then kind of peak like that and then not do it, and think that you're going to come right back and be successful. You gotta know your competition. You got to play against your competition, and you got to see your competition. I used to do it verbatim. I used to go and literally watch any chance I could of my opponent. I'd be hiding in a corner watching. Okay, even warm-ups. What is that person doing in warm-ups? How is he hitting the ball? Well, he's going to do the same things, and you got to get into that thought process of doing that to be successful, because most of the things will not change. They will be the same as a player. They're not going to all of a sudden come up with something totally different, and if they do, it's a mistake, usually. So
yeah. Well, Randy, we've kept you here for a while. We appreciate so much time. It's so good to talk to you again. I love hearing all the stories and stuff. It's great to have you on the show finally.
Thanks for having us. And it very important for me is that you guys are helping promote the sport and give us this opportunities, even as old guys, to talk about what we did and and hopefully where the sport's going.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're trying to do. Just trying to promote the sport. So we thank you tons for all that you did for the sport, getting it into the Olympics. I know obviously that's huge for Tri right now, who's in line to qualify. So
yeah, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Well, it was great having you on. Hope to see you soon, and hope you get healthy too.
Thank you very much, and we will see you guys very soon.
Yeah,
yep.
for sure.
You.
All right, Randy. Shoots.
All right, boys. We'll talk soon.
Yes, sir.
Sure.